When a millionaire entered the wrong car, an incredible life-changing decision was revealed. Jack Thompson slumped into the back seat of what he thought was his glossy black luxury sedan, the hum of the bustling Chicago streets buzzing around him. He was a millionaire, lost in a sea of phone calls and work obligations, the weight of his tech empire pressing down harder than ever. But beneath the surface of his success lay a disquieting hollow wealth had become a mirage, promising satisfaction that never came. Today felt like any other day, until he glanced up. Sarah Rodriguez, exhausted from a long shift at the diner, sat behind the wheel, taking a quick breath before kicking the engine into gear. As exhaustion and hunger gnawed at her, she silently prayed she wouldn't be too late to pick up her kids from school. The sudden sight of Jack Thompson in her backseat sent shockwaves through her tired mind. She blinked, processing the reality of it all. The millionaire, in her beat-up old car, was now a passenger in a life she could only dream of. Sorry, I think you're in the wrong car," Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly. Jack, taken aback, blinked at her in confusion. As he turned to leave, the sound of her soft voice pulled him back. "Wait, you're Jack Thompson, right? The tech guy?" she added with disbelief, recalling snippets of headlines she'd read while waiting for orders to come in. He gave a nod, unsure of what to say next, while she swallowed her amazement. What followed was an unusual exchange. They began sharing their lives. Jack's luxurious and seemingly perfect existence juxtaposed sharply with Sarah's tireless work ethic and dreams for her children. "I want to open a bakery," she shared, her eyes lighting up. "Just a little corner place, you know? Something warm and joyful for my kids. But it's tough. I work double shifts, and sometimes I don't know how I'll make it." Jack heard the struggle in her voice, the hope and ambition battling against the harsh reality of economic hardship. It was striking. The essence of the American dream spilled from her lips as she painted a picture filled with sugary dreams and the scent of fresh-baked bread. Unquestionably, her story and struggles broke into Jack's neatly packaged life. Before the silence stretched too long, Jack felt compelled to speak. "I could help with that." His voice trailed off. The instinct to offer financial help clashed with the knowledge that true empowerment came from grit and aspiration, not handouts. A tension-filled moment hung between them, their lives starkly contrasted. Jack could change everything for Sarah, yet doing so could rob her of the pride woven into her journey. She looked at him with a mixture of hope and hesitation. "I appreciate that," but suddenly, Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, the weight of his business empire crashing back down on him. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Their eyes locked, and a certain glimmer of understanding passed through the air. They each held the power to change the other's trajectory. As Jack battled his instinct to control the outcomes of life through wealth, he felt an unexpected stirring and urge to give not just money but also support for Sarah's journey. With palpable uncertainty entwined in their conversation, Jack and Sarah faced the precipice of a decision that could redefine not just their paths, but the very essence of what it meant to chase the American dream. Would he choose to step in and risk stealing her triumph or let her blaze her own trail? The moment swelled, leaving them both ready to embrace the unknown future that awaited. Jack's phone buzzed again, pulling him further back into the clamor of his corporate world. The familiar ringtone mocked him with reminders of the responsibilities he had left unattended. He hesitated, glancing at the screen. Another meeting? Another demand? In a split second, he met Sarah's gaze again. The weight of understanding behind her tired eyes stopped him cold. "Look, here's the thing," he said, trying to find the right words. "I can offer you a loan, help cover the costs of starting your bakery. I know that sounds like a handout, but no. Just no." The fire in Sarah's voice surprised him. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her knuckles whitening. It's not about the money, Jack. I'm not looking for a free ride. I've worked hard for every dollar, every dream. Her passion surged, filling the cramped car. Jack felt it echo in his chest, the raw power of determination that had slipped away from him in recent years. He admired her boldness, yet couldn't he help but feel defensive. Why was he even here? You don't understand, he began, but stopped himself. I do, she replied, softer now but just as fierce. I get the feeling like you're supposed to help me alone. Like it's easy. But what you don't see is that I want to earn it. To fight for it. Jack's heart raced. This wasn't the conversation he expected when he stepped into the wrong car. All along, he thought he had it figured out, that getting what you wanted was just a matter of writing a check. Yet here was Sarah, a single mom with a dream, teaching him lessons he had long forgotten. What if, he said slowly, what if I helped you in a way that doesn't take away from your hard work? Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? What if I became a silent partner? You run the bakery, every decision is yours, but I can provide some capital to get things rolling. You could have the chance to take all the risks without risking everything. Sarah glanced at him, measuring his intentions. He saw doubt mixing with intrigue. And what's in it for you? Jack chuckled bitterly. Honestly, I don't even know anymore. The heaviness of this conversation pressed against them like a weight. Yet it felt strangely liberating too. Sarah's skepticism shimmered in her eyes, a protective wall built by years of disappointment. But Jack felt hope sparking between them, a shared vision of possibility. Okay, let us just say I'm considering it, she ventured, the corner of her mouth twitching upwards, challenging him. How do you plan to teach me to run a bakery from your ivory tower? I can learn from you, he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. I'll help you with the business part, the recipe plans. On one condition. What? She asked, clearly intrigued. You have to promise to never lose sight of why you wanted this in the first place. It was her turn to ponder his words, the tension thickening in the air as she focused on the rhythm of the road. This could change everything for you too, you know? You think you want to help me, but is it really what you need? Jack inhaled deeply. Her question spiraled around his mind. He had been so focused on wealth that he lost track of what it meant to feel alive. Maybe I just lost the path, he admitted softly. Before they could process this growing bond, another buzz interrupted their thoughts. Jack checked his phone, and frustration washed over him. The same demands, the same glaring reminders of who he once was. I have to go, he said reluctantly, feeling the pull of both worlds. But I want to meet again. This isn't over. Yeah, I think it's far from over, Sarah replied, a small smile on her lips. But deeper down, they both felt the weight of the decisions ahead. As the car came to a pause near a busy intersection, they exchanged numbers, a lifeline between two very different lives. But as Jack stepped out, he glanced back, feeling an unexpected connection. Was she his chance at redemption, or simply the spark to ignite the course of his new purpose? The unknown mixed with excitement as he watched Sarah drive away, both of them on a precipice of change. Could they both, in their own ways, discover what it truly meant to dream again? Jack stood at the edge of the sidewalk, the chill of the evening air brushing against his skin, while the busy traffic buzzed around him. He felt the weight of the world press down on his shoulders, split between the life he led and the unexpected glimpse into another. Sarah had stirred something deep inside him, a flicker of hope, perhaps. It was a feeling he had abandoned long ago in a sea of numbers and deadlines. He watched as the taillights of her car faded into the dusk, a reminder of their conversation still lingering in his mind. What was it about her drive that ignited a spark within him? The thought of her opening a bakery felt somehow personal, like he was also on the brink of a fresh start. As he turned to walk back to his car, the buzz of notifications from his phone nagged at him again. Work emails, unfinished projects. He clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to check. Instead, he took a deep breath and forced himself to remember Sarah's passion, the fire in her voice, when she talked about her dream. He had once shared that fire, but corporate life had doused it. What if he could rediscover that passion, not just for himself but alongside her? The thought sent a thrill through him. He grabbed his phone, shaking off the weight of his corporate world. He typed a quick message to Sarah. "Let us meet tomorrow. I have some ideas." Satisfaction surged as he hit send. Maybe this partnership could bring more than just a bakery to life. Maybe they could inspire each other to reclaim their aspirations. Later that evening, sitting at his kitchen island, Jack reflected on what he had to offer. He thought about the lessons he had learned in the corporate world, marketing strategies, budgeting, customer outreach. All skills that could help Sarah make her bakery thrive. He started drafting a rough business plan, excitement bubbling inside him at the possibility of crafting something with Sarah. But just as the words flowed onto the page, doubt began to creep in. What if he didn't know enough? What if she decided she didn't want him involved after all? With a sigh, he pushed aside the uncertainty. He could lean on what they had already built during their brief conversation. Trusting Sarah's instincts was key. They would have to work as a team, both putting in the effort to learn from each other. It wasn't just about money. It was about support and mentorship. Jack spent the night creating a plan, fueled by the promise of new beginnings. He envisioned Sarah's bakery, filled with vibrant colors and the aroma of fresh pastries. He could picture families gathered around tables, laughter spilling into the streets. When he finally shut his laptop, he felt lighter. It felt like a commitment he was ready to make not just to Sarah, but to himself. He realized, at long last, that he might just have the chance to fight for something that mattered again. The next morning arrived too quickly, despite his restless night. He dressed carefully, wanting to make a good impression but also feeling the weight of vulnerability in his heart. As he approached the cafe where they agreed to meet, excitement coursed through him. And then, just as he stepped inside, he spotted her, Sarah, animated as she chatted with the barista, a bright smile lighting up her face. It struck him how genuine she was in that moment, wrapped in a glow of possibilities. With a newfound determination, he stepped forward, ready to discuss the future. But just as he opened his mouth, the door swung open behind him, and a gust of wind swept through the cafe, sending chills up his spine. He turned, instinctively, to see a familiar figure enter. Jack's heart dropped. It was his boss, and he bore an expression that could cut through steel. What had he walked into? The tension thickened as he felt the weight of his choices bearing down. Would this confrontation change everything? Jack's heart raced as he locked eyes with his boss, Greg. The man moved through the cafe like he owned it, his gait brisk and purposeful. Jack felt rooted to the floor, the air thick with the tension of unspoken words. Greg's presence was like a storm cloud, dark and ominous. Sarah's laughter faded into the background as the reality of his decision loomed large. "Jack," Greg called, his voice sharp but measured. "Can we have a word?" Every eye in the cafe darted between them, the undercurrent of curiosity palpable. Jack's palms felt clammy against the cool metal of the cafe chair. He forced himself to take a breath, trying to find his voice amidst the cacophony of his thoughts. He glanced at Sarah, who wore a puzzled expression, her smile faltering. "Sure, Greg," Jack replied, his voice steadier than he felt. He couldn't help but wonder what had stirred Greg to hunt him down here. He gestured toward Sarah. "I was just now," Greg interrupted, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Jack's stomach tightened. A knot of anxiety twisted in his gut. Somehow, he felt he was on trial. Standing before a jury of cafe patrons, he nodded, giving Sarah a reassuring smile. "I'll be right back." Before he could lose his nerve, Jack followed Greg to a quieter corner of the cafe. The scent of coffee hung in the air, mingling with the soft background chatter. But at that moment, everything seemed muted. "What is going on, Greg?" Jack asked, trying to project confidence. "You've been slacking," Greg said bluntly, his eyes narrowing. "I know you're putting in the effort, but if you're distracted by personal projects." Jack's chest tightened at the implication. Greg was referring to his budding dreams with Sarah, the bakery they would potentially build together. "I'm not distracted," he replied, the words sticking in his throat. "I'm just exploring options." "Options?" Greg raised an eyebrow, his lips curling in a disapproving smile. You really think this little bakery idea can keep you afloat? Those words struck like a slap. Anger simmered inside Jack, intertwining with the fear he kept at bay. Maybe it's time to take risks, he said, forcing a bravado he didn't feel. Life isn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. Life isn't a fairy tale, Jack. This is reality. Greg spat, his voice low and cold. You need to focus on what pays the bills, not this dream of yours. Jack clenched his fists, memories flooding in of long hours spent under fluorescent lights, sacrificing his happiness for a paycheck. Couldn't Greg see that people were driven by more than money? That passion mattered? With each word Greg spoke, Jack could feel his dreams slipping away, but he was determined not to break under the pressure. What if I can make this work? He said, desperation creeping into his voice. What if there's more out there for me? Greg's gaze softened ever so slightly before hardening again. You'll regret this decision. He leaned in a bit too close. You have no idea of the consequences it will bring. Jack blinked, the challenges he faced colliding within him. Greg's threat echoed, deep-seated and terrifying. He could feel himself wavering, the shadows of uncertainty crowding in. Was he truly prepared to stand against everything he built in search of something unpredictable and unproven? Just as doubt seeped into his heart, he heard Sarah's laughter again, buoyant and hopeful, pulled him back from the edge. She believed in her dreams, and maybe it was time he believed in his, too. Thanks for the chat, Greg, Jack finally said, straining to keep his voice steady. But I'm going to pursue this. He turned on his heel and walked back towards Sarah, feeling the weight of his decision settle around him. It was liberating, yet heavy. Could he really take this leap? As he stepped back into the warmth of the cafe, a rush of uncertainty washed over him. Sarah looked up, confusion dancing in her eyes, but he could also see a glimmer of hope. Just then, Greg's voice cut through the murmur of the cafe again, lingering on Jack's ears. Do you really want to throw everything away for a bakery? Jack paused, looking between Sarah and his boss. He clenched his jaw, a silent resolve building within him. What would he choose? What would happen if he took that chance? The cafe felt charged with energy, as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for his answer. And Jack could feel the path ahead, unclear but inviting, swirling with as much fear as it did possibility. Would he step forward, or would he retreat into the familiar? He held his breath, ready to take that leap. But then, the cafe door swung open again, and in walked someone that would change the course of everything he thought he knew. Jack barely had time to process the sight before him. The new arrival strolled into the cafe with an air of casual confidence. Tall and impeccably dressed, the man sported a designer suit that hugged his frame perfectly. He scanned the room with sharp blue eyes, taking it all in until they landed on Jack and Sarah. Excuse me? The man called out, his voice smooth and commanding. Is this seat taken? At first, Jack confused the man for someone important, perhaps a businessman or an influencer. But then he recognized the look of someone who was far more than that, a millionaire, perhaps. The cafe was suddenly filled with an intriguing tension. Yes, it's Jack started, defensive instinct kicking in. But before he could finish, Sarah softly urged him, let him sit. It might be interesting. Jack glanced back at the man, who smiled disarmingly, as if sensing Jack's hesitation. With a deep sigh, Jack stepped aside, signaling to the open chair. Thanks, the man said, settling into the seat as if he owned it. I'm Noah. Noah. The guy nodded, leaning back comfortably. I just parked my car and thought I'd grab a coffee before my meeting. Looks like I walked into the wrong place instead of the office. He let out a small laugh. But this seems better. Jack forced a smile. This wasn't the encounter he anticipated today. But there was something magnetic about Noah. The chatter of the cafe around them faded into a soft hum as Noah shifted the conversation. So, what's your dream? It looks like you could use a bit of encouragement. Jack's heart skipped a beat. The question was simple, yet it tangled deeply with his current battle. He exchanged a quick glance with Sarah, who was listening intently. Surely, this was a moment he couldn't let slip away. Honestly, I want to start a bakery, he said, his voice barely rising above a whisper. But everyone seems to think it's a bad idea. Noah looked intrigued, leaning in. A bakery? Now that's refreshing. What's holding you back? Jack blinked. Most people would have grinned and laughed at the idea of humble pastries. But Noah didn't. He seemed genuinely interested. Honestly, Jack ran a hand through his hair, a wave of vulnerability crashing over him. It's the fear of failing, and what others might think. Noah's expression softened. Failure is just a stepping stone. It's not about what they think. It's about what you want. Life is too short to worry about others. That struck a chord within Jack. The words hung in the air, heavy with shared experience. He wanted to believe that taking a risk could lead to something real and fulfilling. I've been afraid, he admitted, afraid that I'd ruin everything I've built if I try something new. Noah held Jack's gaze, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. What if you find a way to make both work? Sometimes it's about balance, not all or nothing. Jack felt a spark ignite inside him. It was an idea so simple yet resonated deeply. Could he balance his job with building the bakery? Just then, Greg's voice sliced through the moment. Jack, come on. Enough daydreaming. Get back to work. Jack flinched, the urgency of the moment broken. But he looked at Sarah, then Noah, and back at Greg. Suddenly, the stakes felt higher than they ever had. Maybe it's time to show them I can do this, Jack thought, a surge of determination coursing through him. Decision made, Jack stood taller. I think I can manage both, he declared, confidence flooding his voice. Noah smiled, a glint of approval shining through his friendly demeanor. Now that's the spirit. As Jack took a step back from the table, he realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters could spark a revolution within oneself. But just as hope flooded his heart, the cafe door swung open again, admitting an unwelcome figure, someone whose presence could change everything. Again. Who would it be this time, and what impact would they have on Jack's unwritten future? Jack's heart sank as the cafe door swung open, revealing a familiar face that sent a chill down his spine. It was Michelle, his high school ex-girlfriend, and she wasn't alone. If he thought the tension was palpable before, it thickened like molasses now. She sauntered in hand with a tall, dark-haired man who looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. Jack couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy as he watched them laugh. Their chemistry undeniable. He glanced at Sarah, who raised an eyebrow, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Noah, on the other hand, remained calm, a slight smile playing on his lips as he observed Jack's discomfort. Jack, right? Michelle called out, her voice friendly yet laced with a hint of championship. What a surprise to see you here. Gripping his coffee cup, Jack felt his palms grow sweaty. Yeah, it's been a while, he said, forcing a smile. Still daydreaming about that bakery of yours? She asked, her tone almost teasing, nudging her companion, who chuckled quietly in response. Jack's heart raced, embarrassment flooding over him. She always had a way of twisting the knife. Actually, I was just what? Planning to bake fancy cupcakes while living off your real job? She interrupted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Noah shifted his position, a protective air radiating from him. So what are you doing these days, Michelle? He asked, cutting in with surprising assertiveness, as if he sensed the tension in the air. Oh, she waved her hand dismissively, just living the dream in the city. Jacob here? She gestured to her date, is a successful architect. We met at one of those charity galas. It's been a whirlwind. Jack's heart sank even further. But then he caught Noah's eye, the man's blue gaze penetrating him with an intensity that seemed to say, don't let them get to you. It ignited something inside him, a reminder of his earlier resolution. Suddenly, Sarah piped up. You don't have to fit into anyone else's mold, Jack. You have your own path. Remember that. Her voice was low but firm, a lifeline thrown into a sea of mixed emotions. He took a deep breath, redirecting his focus towards her. You're right. I'm going to take that step, Jack said, determination filling his voice. I'm planning to start my bakery, and I'll make it work alongside my job. Michelle rolled her eyes, a smirk forming on her lips. Good luck with that. Maybe you should stick to baking for fun instead of thinking you can turn it into a real business. For a moment, Jack felt that old familiar weight pressing down on him. But with a glance at Noah, who nodded encouragingly, he found his voice again. Actually, I've been working on recipes and testing things out. You should come by when I open, Jack shot back, surprising even himself with his newfound confidence. Michelle looked taken aback for a moment, her bravado faltering. I might just do that, she replied, but there was uncertainty hidden behind her veneer of composure as they shared a brief moment of awkward silence. Jack felt the chains of his past loosen. He was creating a future, something Michelle didn't seem to understand. Noah leaned forward, the air thick with tension, but his presence was calming. Well, I wish you the best, Jack, Michelle added finally, her tone softer. It's good to see you thriving. And with that, she turned on her heel, leading her companion away. Jack let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The encounter had stirred up feelings he thought were long buried. See? You just took a step, Noah nodded, pleased. Yeah, Jack agreed, a tentative smile creeping onto his face. I think I might just leap next. As they settled back into their conversation, Noah casually mentioned, if you ever need a taste tester or some advice, I have a few connections in the business world. I'd be happy to help. Before Jack could respond, the cafe door swung open once more, and in walked a familiar face that froze Jack's heart in his chest. It was Greg, his boss, and he looked furious. What are you doing here, Jack? Greg barked, cutting through the cafe's chatter like a knife. Jack felt all his courage wash away in an instant, replaced with panic. Would Greg crush his dreams right then and there? Jack's mouth went dry as he faced Greg, who stormed into the cafe like an angry wind disrupting a calm afternoon. He was used to Greg's authoritative tone, but this felt different. The heat of embarrassment flared up in his face, and his heart raced. Just grabbing some coffee? Jack stammered, unsure of how to continue. You're supposed to be at the office, Greg huffed, crossing his arms. The tension in the air thickened, and Jack felt the eyes of the cafe patrons turning toward him, some even whispering. It was a moment of public scrutiny he had not anticipated. I had a meeting scheduled, Jack started, but Greg quickly interrupted him. Scheduled? This isn't about meetings. This is about your work ethic. You think you can just disappear whenever you feel like it? Greg's voice raised a notch, and Jack could feel the tension tightening around him. Noah stood up, his presence suddenly feeling larger than life. Maybe a little respect would go a long way, he said quietly but firmly, fixing Greg with a steady look. The surprise in Jack's eyes mirrored how everyone else seemed taken aback by Noah's audacity. Jack was torn between gratitude for Noah's defense and the sheer weight of Greg's disappointment pressing down on him. He could feel Sarah beside him, her hands clenched on the table as if holding herself steady against an incoming tide. Respect? Greg scoffed, turning his glare on Noah. I'm not here to play nice. Jack is my responsibility, and he needs to learn what it means to work hard. He gestured to the cafe. This is a distraction. He's wasting time that could be spent building his career. Jack felt a spark of indignation flare up inside him, battling against the panic. He was tired of feeling like his dreams didn't matter, like all that he believed in was just smoke and mirrors. I'm not wasting time. I'm building something for myself, Jack said, his voice steadier than he felt. Something? Greg rolled his eyes. You think a bakery is a viable career? That's a hobby at best, Jack. You need to get your head out of those clouds and into reality, he snapped. Maybe that's your reality, Jack shot back, a newfound fire igniting within him, but I'm trying to create my own. I'm done listening to you tell me what I'm capable of. I need to follow my passion, not live under your shadow. The cafe held its breath. Jack's chest heaved as he spoke those words, adrenaline pumping through him. For once, he felt free, untethered from the expectations that had weighed him down for far too long. The eyes that had once been judging now looked surprised, intrigued. Greg's face contorted in disbelief. You can't be serious. This is a huge mistake, Jack. You'll regret this. Jack met Greg's furious gaze, holding firm. Maybe the only mistake I'm making is not believing in myself. The silence lingered, a fragile truce hanging in the air. Jack felt a surge of energy, electricity buzzing through his veins, pushing away the blur of doubt that had clouded his vision for so long. Noah's expression shifted to one of admiration, and even Sarah offered him a supportive smile, more radiant under the weight of their conflicted emotions. Finally, Greg huffed, "This isn't over, Jack," and with that, he stormed out, leaving behind a group that buzzed with unvoiced conversations. Jack exhaled deeply, shaking off the tension. "I can't believe I just said that," he admitted, looking from Noah to Sarah, both surprised but encouraging. "Good for you," Sarah said, her eyes lighting up. "You stood up for yourself. That's how things start to change." Jack's heart was still racing. He felt raw but exhilarated, the adrenaline of confrontation settling into resolve. But as he looked around the cafe, taking in the supportive faces, an unsettling question crept into his mind. Had he really made the right choice? "Maybe I just opened a can of worms I wasn't ready for," he murmured, looking down at his coffee cup, half empty, as if it reflected his own uncertainty. As Noah clapped him on the shoulder, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the confrontation had just ignited a chain reaction. What would this mean for his job and his dream of a bakery? The stakes had suddenly gotten a lot higher. And just then, his phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up. Jack hesitated but glanced down, noticing a message from an unknown number. "I know about your bakery plans. Meet me tomorrow to talk." His breath hitched. Who was this? What did they want? Jack's heart raced once more, unable to shake the nagging sense that something big was about to unfold. Jack stared at his phone, the message blinking like a neon sign in a dark alley. His heart pounded in his chest, drowning out the low murmurs of the cafe as his mind raced. Who would know about his bakery dreams, and why were they reaching out now? The ordinary cafe transformed into a stage for an uncertain performance, where all eyes seemed to drift toward him, waiting for the next act. "What does it say?" Noah asked, breaking the spell that had ensnared Jack. "Someone wants to meet me about my bakery plans." They texted from an unknown number. Jack replied, trying to steady his voice, but betraying a tremor of excitement. Sarah leaned closer, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "That's intriguing. Do you think it's someone interested in investing?" "I have no idea," Jack breathed, his fingers gripping the phone tightly. "I didn't think anyone even knew about them." As silence wrapped around their table, Jack's thoughts spiraled. This could be the opportunity he had been dreaming of, but it could also be a trap. The joy of pursuing his bakery, a haven where he could share his passion, was suddenly caught in a web of anxiety. He had just mustered the courage to stand up to Greg, yet now his heart was in a chaotic tango between hope and fear. "Are you going to meet them?" Noah asked, his voice steady yet encouraging. "I should, but what if this turns out badly? I just had a huge confrontation," Jack admitted, his voice falling to a whisper. "I don't even know what this person wants." "You'll never know if you don't take the leap," Noah encouraged, unwavering. "If this is your dream, you have to pursue it." Jack could see the wheels turning in Sarah's mind, the warmth of her smile blending with a hint of determination. "What if it's really good news?" she said. "You need to explore this. You've already stood up for yourself. Keep the momentum going." Jack felt like he could burst from the pent-up energy swirling inside him. It was exhilarating and terrifying. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe this was how it was meant to unfold, facing fears, breaking boundaries, and chasing down every glimmer of his dreams. "Okay, I'll do it," Jack announced, a firm nod painting his resolve. "I'll meet them tomorrow." The words came out clearer, laced with both certainty and an inkling of dread. "Great. Just remember, it could lead to something amazing," Noah said, his enthusiasm like a spark catching fire. As they wrapped up their coffee, Jack couldn't shake the creeping sense that something monumental was on the horizon. Walking out of the cafe, he could still feel the weight of Greg's disappointment, but now it felt lighter, almost like a badge of honor. This was his life, and he was trying to mold it into something he loved. Later that evening, Jack sat on his bed, eyes fixated on the ceiling. What if tomorrow was a turning point? Maybe this anonymous stranger held the key to his dreams, or maybe it was just another distraction orchestrated by fate. But wouldn't he rather chase the dream and risk falling than never try at all? With a mix of jitters and anticipation, he fell into a restless sleep, where visions of golden pastries danced before him, whispering encouragement in the dark. The next day arrived like a thunderstorm full of promise but ominous tension. Jack picked at his breakfast, memories of yesterday's confrontation mingling with visions of what could be. He shot another glance at his phone, the silence between messages almost deafening. Just as he was about to walk out the door, a new notification buzzed to life. Holding his breath, he opened it, revealing a new message. The meeting is at Café Lumière. I'll be expecting you. Jack's heart raced again. He couldn't ignore the feeling that this was just the beginning. Tension rippled through him. There was no turning back now. What awaited him at Café Lumière? Would this be the moment that changed everything or simply another detour? As he stepped out into the day, uncertainty clung to him like a shadow, but that feeling of hope rose just a bit higher. It was time to find out. As Jack approached Café Lumière, the familiar scent of fresh bread and rich coffee wafted through the air, wrapping around him like a comforting hug. It was his favorite café, and yet today felt radically different. Today it was the stage for the most pivotal moment of his life. He paused outside, taking a deep breath to steady himself. The old wooden door creaked as he pushed it open, revealing a cozy interior bathed in warm light. His heart pounded again, louder than the din of conversations and clinking cups. Jack glanced around, scanning the tables filled with patrons sipping lattes and tapping away at laptops. He was looking for someone. The message had promised that they would be expecting him. But who were they? Jack. A voice called out, pulling him from his thoughts. At a small table in the corner, a woman waved enthusiastically. She was in her late 30s, her curly hair framing a friendly face, and she radiated warmth that instantly put him at ease. "Hi," he replied, crossing the cafe. As he settled into the seat opposite her, he realized he recognized her. They had crossed paths at a local farmer's market, where he often bought ingredients. "I'm Emily," she introduced herself, her bright smile infectious. "I'm so glad you came. I've been following your journey with your bakery plans." Jack blinked, surprise washing over him. "You know about that? How?" "It's a small community," Emily explained with a laugh. "People talk. Your passion caught my eye. Plus, I've tasted your bread at the market. It's fantastic." He felt the warmth of a blush rising to his cheeks, grateful for her kind words yet aware of the underlying tension that sat between them. "Thank you," he mumbled, trying to gather himself. Emily leaned in, her expression shifting from friendly to serious. "Here's the thing, Jack. I want to help you. I know things have been tough for you, and I really believe in what you want to create, a bakery that brings people together." Jack's breath caught. Was she offering him what he thought she was? "Help me? Like, invest in my bakery?" "Exactly," she replied, excitement sparkling in her eyes. "I've worked in food startups for years, and I want to back your dreams. Your ideas for a community-focused bakery are inspiring, and I think we could develop it into something incredible." Overwhelmed, Jack didn't know what to say. This was happening so fast, the chance to turn his dreams into reality was sitting right in front of him. "What's the catch?" Jack finally asked, his skepticism creeping back. "Why me?" She smiled softly, shaking her head. "No catch. Just a belief that good food can change lives. I believe your heart is in the right place, and I want to help it grow." But just as hope began to flourish in his chest, doubt crept back in. He thought of Greg, the disbelief in his voice as he'd told Jack he would never succeed. "I don't know. What if I let you down?" Emily reached across the table, placing her hand on his. "Jack, we all have fears and doubts. The key is to take the leap and surround yourself with people who believe in you. If you're willing to try, I'll be here to support you." His heart thudded loudly in his chest as the whirlwind of emotions set in. Could he actually do this? What if he failed? But what if he succeeded? The possibilities unfurled before him, both intoxicating and terrifying. "I'd love to," Jack began, but his phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. He glanced down, a rush of anxiety flooding through him. The message on the screen was unexpected, and it shattered the fragile bubble of hope that had just begun to form. "Jack?" Emily's voice penetrated through his thoughts, looking concerned. "What is it?" It took a moment to gather his thoughts again. As he looked up, he realized this decision could change everything. Would he dare to embrace what could be, or retreat into the safety of the familiar? With his heart racing, Jack clicked on the message. Was it a warning? A path to something greater? What awaited him now felt like the brink of discovery, and he knew that whatever it was, it could lead to a life he'd only dared to dream about. But the phone screen lit up with a name that made his breath hitch. Greg. What could he possibly want now? Jack stared at his phone, heart pounding as he read the words. "I need to see you. We need to talk about your future." Greg's name was like a weight dragging him down. Just when it felt like he was taking steps toward his dreams, the specter of his past loomed over him again, threatening to suffocate the resolve he was beginning to build. But as he looked back at Emily, her encouraging smile gave him strength. "I'll be right back," he said softly, rising from the table. He moved swiftly, determined to put distance between potential setbacks and the electrifying opportunity that was unfolding before him. Stepping outside the cafe, Jack quickly dialed Greg's number, steeling himself for whatever was to come. The older man's voice was as sharp as ever. "Jack, where are you? You should have been in the office to discuss this job situation." "Greg, I'm not coming back. I'm not going to let you dictate my choices any longer," Jack replied, surprising even himself with the firmness in his voice. He felt the power of his resolution course through him like an adrenaline rush. There was a momentful pause on the other end before Greg responded. "Are you seriously about to throw your career away for a bakery? This is beyond foolish. You're going to regret this." "No, I won't," Jack asserted. "I've spent too long living someone else's dream. If I fail, that's on me. But how can I live with myself if I don't even try?" Greg scoffed, and Jack felt the old tension swelling until he suddenly realized Greg's power wasn't as absolute as he had led him to believe. He had the choice. He was free. "Jack, think about this clearly." "No, Greg. Think about it yourself. I want to live authentically. This isn't just about money. I need to follow my passions," he retorted, his voice full of conviction. The phone fell silent, but Jack could almost hear Greg's gears turning. "You're making a mistake, but fine. Once you see it, don't come crawling back," Greg finally said, his voice laced with frustration. "I won't." Jack ended the call. His heart raced in his chest, but excitement washed over him as he turned back toward Café Lumière. He had taken back his narrative, stepped away from the grasp of an old life, and embraced the unknown. Jack slid back into his seat across from Emily, excitement and nerves bubbling in him. "I'm in. Let us make this bakery happen," he declared, a grin spreading across his face. Emily's eyes sparkled bright. "That's amazing. We'll start working on a business plan right away." She quickly began outlining ideas, leaving Jack feeling both exhilarated and fearful. As they delved into the conversation about branding, flavors, and community involvement, Jack felt a warmth blossom in his chest. For the first time, he saw a future filled with sweet pastries and laughter, where he could create something meaningful while sharing it with people around him. Hours flew by, filled with collaboration and shared dreams, and it all felt so surreal. Jack marveled at the transformation happening within him and the undeniable bond forming between him and Emily. This venture was unraveling the threads of doubt once woven around his heart. When they finally wrapped up for the day, Jack stood outside Café Lumière, the sun beginning to dip below the horizon. With a full heart, he took a deep breath of the crisp evening air. This was the beginning, not just of a bakery, but of his true self emerging from the shadows. Just then, his phone buzzed once more. He glanced down and saw another message, a picture from Sarah, showing her kids with huge smiles in front of their makeshift bakery set at home, testing out new recipes. He felt a rush of joy. They were united in this pursuit of their dreams, transforming lives one step one baked good at a time. Then he received a follow-up message from her. Excited to celebrate your success. That was all he needed to feel anchored in this journey. With newfound assurance, Jack smiled to the fading sun and whispered, "This is just the beginning." He was no longer trapped by the weights of another's expectations but set on a course to discover the freedom of authenticity. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he was ready to take them on, equipped with the belief that every setback would be a stepping stone towards his dreams. A camera zoomed in on his radiant smile, capturing the moment that signified hope, resilience, and the priceless value of believing in oneself. Now, remember, don't just scroll away. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and keep this incredible journey alive. Comment below your reactions and feelings about Jack's transformation, because I want to hear from you. And you must share this video with at least 5 friends who need to believe in their dreams and take that leap. Don't wait not even one more second to support the channel. Every action counts.